And as the government is set to temporarily reopen, the Coast Guard continues to work without paychecks. So that's why local organizations are helping. For a second week in a row, the Coastal Bend Chief Petty Officers Association held a food drive at the Fleet Reserve Association, making sure federal employees and their families have what they need. They're not only helping Coast Guard members here in Corpus Christi, but those stationed between Galveston and Brownsville.
It makes me proud that the whole community has stepped up, and also makes me proud to be a Coastie because it shows how much the community really appreciates us, and makes me feel good.
They will hold another food drive tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at 1651 Flower Bluff Drive.